All right. Terminal report. File designation Gate 3-B. The subject is Field Agent Hamza Lorizan. Classification 7. This is the final debrief, and we've had to piece it together from recoverable psych data and, well, whatever audio fragments were left after the incident. Everything you're about to see is classified restricted tier. Let's begin.
This is the first coherent thing we pulled from the agent's recorder. Just that. Test number 31. No context, nothing before it, just that flat declarative statement. The implication, of course, is that there were 30 prior tests, a huge gap in his memory that he is instantly and instinctively aware of.
On paper, the whole setup seems standard, if a little extreme. You've got an agent, Hamza Lorizan, recovered after his mission at Gate 3 went completely dark. So, he's put in a containment unit, and the objective? A humanity verification test. Basically a deep dive psychodiagnostic to make sure he hasn't been compromised, or worse, replaced by some kind of mimicry entity. It's worst-case scenario protocol.
So, let's get into the analysis. Section 1. The subject. What's incredible is that what follows is a breakdown of Agent Lorizan's initial responses. Even disoriented, and what we now think was chemically suppressed, his training was completely intact.
You see, even before he opens his eyes, his training just kicks in. He starts running a systematic sensory inventory. The smell of ozone and bleach, he deduces it's a containment unit. The sound, or lack of it, acoustic dampening. It signals a controlled environment. The flickering, unstable light, classic disorientation tactic. He puts that together with his last known position and lands on the only logical conclusion. Gate 3. This is pure, disciplined analysis under extreme pressure.
When they ask if his conclusion about his location is a question, this is his response. It's just so cold, so efficient, almost arrogant. Now, in a normal diagnostic, that level of detachment might actually be a red flag. It could be seen as an indicator of non-human mimicry, something performing the role of a competent agent rather than just being one.
Which brings us to Section 2. The interrogators switch gears here, moving from verbal questions to a visual diagnostic. This looks like some kind of specialized Turing test, and it seems designed to do one thing: provoke a core human response, or, prove the lack of one.
The test is laid out across 16 slides. The first few are just to establish a baseline, with really obvious anomalies. Then they move into more ambiguous images, subtle, wrong details in crowds, that kind of thing. It's designed to lull the subject into a state of routine analysis. But that's all just a preamble. It's all a setup for the real diagnostic, a single, targeted image meant to expose a mimic for what it is.
And here is the response. The moment they show him slide 8, Agent Lorizan's professional composure completely shatters. His reaction is immediate, it's visceral. He doesn't see what they claim is there. No. Instead, he identifies it with the cold terror of his training, describing a forward-facing predatory morphology, a Class 5 reality distorter. He even calls it a known erased organism.
And this is the critical data point, this jarring disconnect. On the one hand, you have Lorizan Essen's assessment, a top-tier, restricted-level threat. On the other hand, objective reality, at least as presented by his interrogators, it's just an owl. So, from the perspective of the test administrators, this is it. It's definitive proof. The agent failed. He can't even identify a simple animal. He is the anomaly.
But to really understand his reaction, you have to remember the context here, the Great Erasure. This was a civilization-wide event, a kind of induced amnesia, where our collective memory of the entire animal kingdom was just wiped. The result? We see these pre-erasure creatures not as animals, but as something alien, as eldritch horrors. So Lorizan's terror? It wasn't a failure. It was a conditioned, species-wide reflex. It was a perfectly authentic human response.
And this is where the entire incident pivots. Section 3. The analyst becomes the analyzed. Because it's right here, at the moment his own humanity is seemingly disproven, that Agent Lorizan starts applying his analytical training not to the test, but to the people giving it.
This is the question that just reframes everything we thought we knew. All the data, all his responses, his apparent failure. What if the humanity test was never, ever meant for Agent Lorizan?
He starts noticing things. Small, clinical details that are just wrong. The room is cold, sub 12 degrees, but he sees zero breath condensation from his interrogators. Their movements feel off. He calls them marionette-like. He hears this wet, thick clicking sound from behind him with no discernible source. Their speech is perfectly, impossibly synchronized, down to the clock cycle. Their stillness isn't natural. He calls it performed. And the final nail in the coffin? They don't respond when he invokes Bureau Protocol Section 7B13. They were failing every single test of humanity he was silently giving them.
And so we come to the final section of this report, the conclusion. It's just unavoidable. The infiltration wasn't coming. It was already complete.
This whole procedure, it was never an interrogation. It was never about finding out if Agent Lorizan was human. It was a calibration. The entities were using a confirmed human subject, and an elite, highly trained one at that, as a baseline. They were recording his every response, his logic, his fear, his fatigue. They weren't testing him, they were studying him, learning from him to perfect their own disguises. His terror at seeing the owl wasn't a fail state. For them, it was the most valuable piece of data they could have possibly hoped for.
This is the final one-way burst transmission we ever got from the agent's hidden comms unit. Gate 3 is compromised. Assume all personnel may be replaced. He sent this after he finally understood the full, horrifying scope of what was actually happening. A total security failure.
His last recoverable memory log describes what happened when the test ended. The lights come up to full, and the truth is revealed. The room was packed. Not with 2 interrogators, but with dozens of these entities, and they were in various states of completion. Some looked almost perfect, others were just crude geometric shapes approximating a human form, and all of them were just watching him. The whole thing was an observation, a clinical study.
The last bit of sensory data we recovered is just audio. After the lights go out for the last time, he hears a sound in the absolute perfect dark. It's not a threat, it isn't an attack. He describes it as practicing. One of the entities learning to make a new noise with the patient, terrifying focus of something that has all the time in the world to get it exactly right. He was their textbook. And for them, the lesson was over. End of report.